The year was 1943. Berlin was a city consumed by shadows. The air felt thick, as if the very breath of the people was heavy with fear, oppression, and uncertainty. Nazi soldiers marched through the streets, their boots echoing like a countdown to an unknown, looming disaster. In the heart of this chaos stood a man, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a theologian, a pastor, and an unyielding voice against the evils of the regime. It was a time when the light of hope seemed to flicker and fade for many, but not for Dietrich. He had seen the rise of Hitler's power and witnessed the slow, agonizing decline of moral integrity within the German church. He was an insider and yet an outsider, simultaneously loyal to his country and unwavering in his faith. But as the world turned its back on the horror unfolding in Germany, Bonhoeffer refused to remain silent. His voice echoed against the tide of evil, speaking the truth that others were too afraid to confront. But what would it cost him? Would his unshakable faith hold when the very foundation of his life began to crumble? Dietrich Bonhoeffer was not born a hero. He was born into an influential family, a family that had lived through the complex struggles of German society for generations. He was academically gifted and had the world at his feet, but his calling was clear from the start. He was destined for more than comfort. He was destined to stand against the tide, to confront evil head-on. In the early 1930s, Bonhoeffer's life seemed set on a different path, one of quiet academic achievement and theological debates. But as Hitler's Nazi regime began to tighten its grip on Germany, something inside Bonhoeffer shifted. He could no longer remain detached from the suffering and the violence that was consuming his country. The church was divided. Some clung to the state's power, while others, like Bonhoeffer, saw the terrifying implications of Nazism on their faith. And so, the stage was set for a confrontation between faith and power, a struggle that would shape the course of Bonhoeffer's life. But even as the Nazis advanced, Bonhoeffer remained silent for a time, wrestling with his conscience. The world was watching, but no one dared to speak out. He couldn't live with that silence. Not anymore. One Sunday, in a small church in Berlin, Bonhoeffer preached a sermon that would set the course for his life's work. His message was clear. Silence in the face of evil is a sin. And so, his voice rang out, echoing through the walls of the church, challenging the status quo, calling for a reckoning. But this act of defiance would not go unnoticed. By now, Bonhoeffer was a man marked by the regime. His words, his actions, they had earned him the undivided attention of the Nazis. They could not tolerate such resistance, such audacity. And so, they began to close in on him, slowly at first, then with increasing urgency. The church that Bonhoeffer had once known was no longer a sanctuary. It had become a battleground, a place where power and faith clashed violently. Bonhoeffer could no longer trust his own peers. Many of the pastors who had once shared his vision of Christ's truth had abandoned him, aligning themselves with the Nazi-controlled church. The walls were closing in. Bonhoeffer sought refuge in the confessing church, a small but courageous group of believers who stood firm in their opposition to Nazi ideology. This church was a last line of defense, a faint flicker of light against the crushing darkness. But as the resistance grew, so did the danger. Bonhoeffer's involvement in the confessing church would eventually lead him into a world of covert operations, espionage, and plots to bring down the Nazi regime. Yet, even as he moved deeper into the shadows, the danger was ever present. It was not long before Bonhoeffer realized that the fight against Hitler could not be won simply through theological debate or peaceful protest. He had to take action. In 1942, Bonhoeffer became part of a secret resistance group that sought to overthrow Hitler. This decision marked the beginning of a new phase in his life, a phase that would see him navigating a world filled with secrecy, danger, and betrayal. His participation in the assassination plot to kill Hitler was the moment when Bonhoeffer's faith would truly be tested. The decision to take such a drastic step was not made lightly. Bonhoeffer struggled with the moral implications of the plot. Could a Christian, sworn to love his enemies, resort to violence to protect innocent lives? The weight of this decision bore heavily on him, and yet he believed that to allow Hitler to live was to allow the slaughter of millions. As the plot progressed, Bonhoeffer found himself moving deeper into a network of spies and secret meetings. He was both a man of faith and a man of action, torn between the teachings of Christ and the reality of a world gone mad. He could feel the tension building. Each moment was more dangerous than the last. And yet, despite the danger, he pressed on. He knew that this was no longer just about resisting an oppressive regime. It was about preserving the very essence of humanity. The moment Bonhoeffer had feared the most came to pass. The walls of secrecy and protection that he had relied on for so long finally began to crumble. A trusted friend, someone he had known and confided in, betrayed him. Bonhoeffer was arrested and thrown into a prison cell. For days, he sat in the cold, dark isolation of his cell, pondering his fate. The world outside seemed so far away. The people he had fought for, the truths he had preached. Was it all for nothing? The betrayal was gut-wrenching, but it was the brutal reality of his imprisonment that would truly test his resolve. He could hear the sounds of soldiers marching outside, the screams of others who were suffering in the same prison. But through it all, Bonhoeffer clung to one thing, his faith. He wrote letters to his loved ones, urging them to remain faithful, to keep hope alive. His words, though written from behind bars, were filled with a deep sense of peace. In the face of what seemed like certain death, Bonhoeffer showed the world that true strength does not come from physical power, but from spiritual resolve. As the months dragged on, Bonhoeffer's fate seemed sealed. The Nazis, in their ever-growing paranoia, saw him as a threat that could not be allowed to survive. Bonhoeffer's prison was not a place for mercy. It was a place where the weak were broken and the strong were silenced. Yet, in the face of it all, Bonhoeffer never wavered. His faith had become his fortress, his shield against the terror that surrounded him. He knew that his time was running out. The noose that would end his life was tightening with each passing day. And yet, he showed no fear. The final letter he wrote was a testament to his unwavering belief in God. "This is the end. For me, the beginning of life," he wrote. In the early days of April 1945, just days before Germany's defeat, Bonhoeffer was executed. His life, cut short by the evils of the Nazi regime, left behind a legacy that would echo throughout history. Dietrich Bonhoeffer's story did not end in the grave. His life, his courage, his unwavering faith in the face of unimaginable evil continues to inspire millions today. He showed the world that no matter how dark the night, the light of faith could not be extinguished. He showed that even in the face of betrayal, imprisonment, and death, the power of Christ's love is stronger than any force of evil. Bonhoeffer's final words echo through the ages. "This is the end, for me, the beginning of life." For Bonhoeffer, death was not the end. It was the beginning of a new life, a life eternal, in the presence of the God he had so faithfully served. As you reflect on Bonhoeffer's incredible journey, ask yourself, how deep is your faith? Would you stand firm in the face of persecution, or would you allow fear to silence your voice? Let his life be a challenge to your own. Are you willing to stand for truth, no matter the cost? Are you ready to face the darkness with unshakable faith? Subscribe now to our channel and join us on this journey of faith, courage, and unyielding strength. Don't miss out on more inspiring stories that challenge us to live boldly and faithfully, no matter what.